and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. Before we get to the show, let's get the pleasantries out of the way.
First of all, our website. If you want more information about our little podcast, go to wearethecontrarians.com. That's where you'll find links to our old episodes, to our Patreon channel, and to our awesome Contrarians merch.
You can show your support by buying a Contrarians mug or a pillow.
I like the laptop bags myself.
Second of all, if you enjoy the show, tell your friends. Or even go a step further and leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you use to listen to your podcasts.
Finally, if you want to reach out directly to us, that's what social media is for. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Contrarian Prime, or check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/Contrarian Prime.
Julio runs our official Twitter account at Contrarian Prime, but if you want to give me a piece of your mind or just want to banter about pro wrestling, you can follow me at Contrarian Alex.
That's it. That's our intro.
Now, time for the show.
This is our lesson.
And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Kin, our final episode of 2022.
My God. Hello, and welcome back to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my co-host and friend Julio, my co-pilot on the never-ending quest of the contrary. Julio, another year in the books, a calendar year. We done good, and I think we're ending not with a bang, but with a whimper.
You think so? I mean, if you go by the Tomatometer, I guess.
But this is, appropriately, we're ending the year on a Patron Demand. I think that's, they keep the machine running, so it's only appropriate.
They decide how we close.
That's right. They decide our fate. Much like Michael B. Jordan, they decide our fate. Who, for those of you who don't know, Michael B. Jordan was the executive producer on this film. We are here today to discuss the 2018 science fiction crime action thriller, Kin, directed by brothers Jonathan and Josh Baker, with a screenplay by Daniel Casey. Anything else of Daniel Casey?
I've never heard of him.
Yeah, me neither.
Did he write IO? Because that movie had like 5 writers.
He was an uncredited writer on 10 Cloverfield Lane, which I've never seen.
Well, that movie, not to tip my hand here, but that movie is better than Kin.
Oh, here you go. He was a writer on Fast 9, or F9.
Yeah, that I didn't make it that far. The Fast and Furious saga.
Nah, we're good. Starring Miles Truitt.
Introducing Alex, Miles Truitt.
Excuse me. Jack Raynor, Zoë Kravitz, with Dennis Quaid and James Franco.
Man, it's a shame that they didn't just go the extra mile, just that final step. It was like, and James Franco as
Oh, yes.
the name of his character in Homefront.
I mean, well, we're returning back to Homefront in this. I pumped my fist when I figured out James Franco is the bad guy in this. Plays Taylor Ballock, a crime lord. And for those of y'all who haven't heard it, or those of longtime listeners that remember, we were very big fans of James Franco being the bad guy in Homefront.
It's a lot more fun when he's a bad guy in a movie as opposed to when he's revealed to be the bad guy in real life. Zing! This is post-cancellation Franco, right?
I don't know. 2018?
Is it post-Oscars Franco? That's really the main question. It was all downhill from there.
Oh, when he hosted with Anne Hathaway?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like 2015 or something? I don't know. Anyway, James Franco's the bad guy, and believe you me, he gets his in the end. But again, we're here to discuss Kin, a fascinating piece of business. But if this is someone's jumping off point with us, Godspeed. I'm curious who works at Summit and was like, all right, we need to see what people are saying. Or was it Lionsgate? Summit and Lionsgate were in the signatures at the beginning, but they're like, all right, we need to see what the streets are saying. We're thinking about re-releasing this.
Who's the chump that got assigned to monitor the Google alerts for Kin?
Yeah, for real. He's just been fucking playing solitaire on his computer for the last 3 years. 4 years, Jesus. Julio, who demanded this?
This comes from a patron and friend of the show. Well, I guess all patrons are friends of the show. But this is somebody that we actually have spent time with, and he guessed it. He's the passengers man, Jordan Mans. He said, "Here you go, guys. This is." I think what he said on his message was, "This is a true episode movie because it has a rotten score." And I think that so far, the things that he's assigned to us, because he's giving us QVRs and he's giving us movies for the Patron feed, they have been fresh, maybe middling at times, but generally on the fresh side of the Tomatometer. And this time, I don't know if he agrees with the fact that this is a rotten movie, but he was very aware of what he was giving us when it came to a critical reception.
Yeah, for our Patron feed previously, had given us Aniara, which was a pretty fascinating film and feels appropriate. Similar sheen to both of those. But
he just gave us, for QVRs, he gave you The Art of Self-Defense, and he gave me Mass, which now that I've watched the movie and done the QVR, like, I can tell you what I didn't know when I first plugged it on the show. Like, that's a movie about a mass shooting. It's like really heavy. So I
got off easy with that.
Yes.
I really, really fucking liked Art of Self-Defense, but it was, a comedy.
Yeah, I was just glad that Kin was lighter fare, to say the least.
Yes. James Franco's the bad guy. He's somewhere in between Alien from Spring Breakers and his character in Homefront. He's... or he just showed up to set like that and is like, I'm not fucking changing.
This is me now.
And Dennis Quaid was constantly like looking at the clock, like, I'm off at 5, you better get this shit in.
He walked up to the directors, because there's two guys, and he was like, here's an idea. What if you kill me on the first act?
The end of reel 1, I'm dead.
Just throwing it out there.
So before we dive into Kin, if this is your first time listening to The Contrarians, thank you so much for joining us. For our returning listeners, we love y'all. Give us a moment here while we explain what it is we do to any of our potential newbies. Here on The Contrarians, our battle cry is we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. That is what we do. We find a movie on Rotten Tomatoes that is highly rated, a lot of times accompanied with that beautiful trademark logo of Certified Fresh. And what we'll do is bring that movie down to size, discuss maybe some of the things that are a bit overrated, some things that critics may have just ignored, poor acting, bad score, questionable storytelling choices, that type of thing. Just calling out that, hey, this high score may not be, all it's cracked up to be. And then conversely, like we'll be doing today, we'll find a movie on Rotten Tomatoes, or in this case, we'll be told a movie to watch that has a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. And as you could guess, we'll build that movie up. We'll talk about some of the underrated aspects of it. Acting, score, soundtrack's a big one. It's a banger in this one. Bold direction choices, cinematography, plots that are more curious and ambitious than their score reflects. Being that we have a 35%er here on Rotten Tomatoes, obviously not one that's heralded by the critics. So in this first portion, we'll be building up Kin and talking about it in a favorable light. We do this for two reasons. One, Julio and I used to work together and talked endlessly about how the Rotten Tomatoes system didn't always really tell the whole story and was kind of unfair. Not so much in the way the system works, but one, the fact that Rotten Tomatoes doesn't really go out of their way to explain how their system works, and then two, those scores, you can't really tell the whole story of a movie on a scale of 100%. And then also the fun satirical nature of being as over the moon about something as you want to be if you set your mind to it, or as downright cynical as you want to be if you are truly committed to doing so. Shit's subjective. So, Julio, what I'm describing here all goes to comprise the first half, which we call Contrarians Corner. If listeners want to know how we really feel about the movie du jour, in this case Kin, they just have to tune into the second half.
That's correct. The second half of the show, aptly titled Real Talk, that's where we tell you how we really feel. We forget about the Tomatometer, we drop the gimmick, and now we're just telling you what it was like to watch Kin, in both our cases, for the very first time. And it will prove to be an interesting conversation. We've been on a streak of sci-fi for some reason. We just did Star Trek, and then we did I.O., we did Warrior, which is sci-fi in a way, because there's the way that Joel Edgerton could make it to the end of that movie. So I think that we've kind of, it was building up to this, Alex. We didn't even know it, but we're building up to a big sci-fi conversation to close 2022. And I'm excited to hear what you have to say, because I don't know really anything. I know that before we recorded, you were getting in the mood by watching X-Men 3. So I don't know what that says about Kin. Hopefully that it just whet your appetite for more fantastical adventures.
Still on my sister and I are watching all the X-Men movies in chronological order. Coming soon to Patreon, my full recount of the X-Men franchise.
The chronological history of the X-Men.
You get to part 3 and it's like, well, wait a minute. Raven's supposed to be dead now. What's going on here?
What happened to CM Punk?
All right, so Kin released theatrically on August 31st of 2018. Soundtrack by Mogwai, Scottish post-rock band. I remember hearing about them when I was younger.
So in 2018?
No. I mean, they formed in 95, so they've been around for a while. I remember high school or something, people... Oh, you gotta listen to this band. So when I saw that they were doing the music for it, I was like, oh, that's cool. Obviously, a band, they've been around since 95, a touring band and whatnot, but kind of did some of the Trent Reznor action of later in their career doing scores and soundtracks for movies.
You think that's how they got Dennis Quaid? Like, we got Mogwai doing the music.
Speaking of X-Men, it's the Oscar Isaac thing. They signed Dennis Quaid because he thought he was going to get to work with Zoe Kravitz, and then, Oscar Isaac, I get to work with all these great actors, and nope, didn't really work out that way.
You see, Jimmy, me and my brother, we don't project any illusions about who we are, what we do, We're very clear that first day, post charges or what have you, about how we deal with loans. Because there are people that do business like you, and there's people that do business like us. So, is there something funny about the language on that you didn't understand? Some kind of fine print problem? No.
Chased by a vengeful criminal, the feds, and a gang of otherworldly soldiers, an ex-con and his adopted teenage brother go on the run with a weapon of mysterious origin as their only protection. So, Julio, right away, we got a pretty fascinating little sentence there to get us going. But 35%, this was not beloved by many. What exactly were the critics saying at the time of release, or I guess since then? Because, Rotten Tomatoes is an ever-evolving score. So what were you able to dig up for us here?
That's true. It's ever-evolving. I mean, this episode might actually move the needle in a way that, next year, 2 years from now, Kin will be a fresh movie. You're welcome. But we're going to start with David Harris. All these quotes are rotten. David Harris from Spectrum Culture, who says, Kin is a movie that never should have been made. It's a horrible thing to say.
I mean, straight to the point.
Yeah.
He's not very loquacious. He gets right to it.
It's like the wrong kid died. It's brutal. Dan Buffa from KSDK News, St. Louis, says, Kin is an atrocious marriage of bad acting and laughable writing. Bad acting, Alex. This is an all-star cast. We haven't even gotten to Carrie Coon. We'll save it for real talk. I don't know that you can say that anybody's acting badly here. You may just have trouble buying into the world because maybe sci-fi is not your thing, but I think that they're acting in a very sci-fi way.
Did you know that I'm learning this just now in real time, that Jack Rayner has appeared on the Contrarians before?
Oh yeah, I was waiting to see. I was gonna ask you whenever we got to him. I was really like, Alex, where do you know him from? Because you know him from two things.
One of which I didn't know, but
his best work, and you didn't even remember.
Yeah. No, yeah, he's in. I knew his face looked familiar, so yeah, he's in Midsommar, and then yeah, I completely forgot he was in Sing Street, which many moons ago we did an episode on Sing Street.
Yes, Sing Street, a favorite of mine. He's my favorite character in Sing Street. And then he had to go and do Midsommar, and well, we haven't spoken since. Next, Rafer Guzman from Newsday says, random ideas, vague characters, stolen plot points. This thing barely qualifies as a movie. It got a theatrical release, so I think that qualifies.
Yeah, I beg to differ.
Yeah, it's right there on the big screen. And finally, Jeff Mitchell from Phoenix Film Festival says, this laser gun story misfires. And it's not the only quote that was there with a firing or misfiring pun. Rotten Tomatoes never disappoints.
They'll take the bait and go for the obvious one.
What are those?
My shoes.
You wear those in public?
All right, getting into it with Kin here. We talked about the opening credits, the beautiful with Dennis Quaid and James Franco. Very tone setting. We get some voiceover action here. Our main character in this movie introducing Miles Truitt, who plays Eli, and lives in Detroit. He's the adopted son of Dennis Quaid. He's obviously, if you quickly into the movie, obviously find out that he just lost his mother. The movie starts, with some distress phone calls from either his teacher, his principal at school, to Dennis Quaid about, I'm worried about Eli. We're noticing some behavioral issues, and we see that he rummages through construction sites, stripping walls for copper, aluminum, things like that, and takes them to chop shops and junkyards and sells them back, or sells them, stealing, and he flips them for 100% profit. He stumbles across like a scene of chaos. I mean, the movie starts with like action. There's like a shootout going on, and it seems like extraterrestrial activity.
Yep.
Did you immediately get the idea that we're in for like some sci-fi like alien shit here?
Not right away. It was when he found the corpses, they look pretty futuristic. I'm like, all right, what's going on here? Is this the future? Or is this, are they from another planet or are they from the future? Pretty early on into the movie, but that opening where they just blow up the top of the building, I thought it was too early to tell. I didn't want to get too excited. And like I said, we've been doing a fair share of sci-fi recently, so I didn't want to jump the gun just because maybe that's where my mind was at. I guess because you mentioned on the credits, Alex, from the moment you see those names, you see Dennis Quaid, James Franco, was it just a matter of, this is cool, but I'm just waiting to see when they show up? Yeah,
because when we were talking about this movie originally, when it was put on the table, and you look it up on Google or whatnot, the first things that pop up like pictures of Dennis Quaid and James Franco. I was like, wait, what? So then, like watching the credits, I was like, do I have the right movie? And even just like what happens in the early going, I'm like, how does Dennis Quaid fit into this?
Do you think maybe he was gonna get to wear one of those futuristic suits? Come with me if you want to live.
Yeah, he would be the leader. That would be the shit. But it's not to be, as Dennis Quaid is his father. Dennis Quaid playing Harold Hal Selinsky. He's a lead on a construction site.
You think he's a good dad?
He's doing the best he can, man.
He literally says that.
He just lost his wife.
You drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, and if I'm hard on you, it's just because the world is hard, and that's a very fair statement. Fair point. Something that not enough people are raised to understand these days. So Dennis Quaid, yeah, he was doing good. He was doing all right. He's a bit terse and a bit...
It's tough love.
Could use a bit more warmth to him, I guess I'd say.
Do you think if he had the $60K to spare, would this movie had played out differently?
I would imagine so.
I don't know. Maybe he still thought maybe that Jack Rayner needed to learn a lesson.
Well, what comes to be is that Jimmy Selinsky, Eli's adopted brother and Hal's son, is sprung from the pen. Not sprung, I'm sorry. He gets released from the pen. Mixing up my vernacular here. He's been in jail for 6 years. We don't really know why. It sounds like he's a thief or stole something, or obviously did something bad because his dad's super judgmental of him. He gets out, and not unlike Drive, where Oscar Isaac is indebted for protection on the inside, that's quickly how we come to find our villain in this. What happens is Jimmy comes home. He's going to stay with his dad. His first night in, he goes to visit our bad guy here, James Franco, again, who plays Taylor. I think they call him Tay in some parts. He's a crime lord and, obviously helped the ring that protected Jimmy on the inside. And we quickly find out that because of that, he owes James Franco, Taylor, he owes him $60,000. And, Franco's got like this trap house and it's all sketchy. Not unlike Spring Breakers. I was getting immediate like flashbacks to spring breakers here with, people just strung out playing video games and whatnot.
So
And,
that's $10,000 a year. If he was in for 6 years, he owes $60,000. So that's $10,000 per year. That's not even $1,000 a month for protection. That's a pretty good deal.
I mean, I would think I would like to live for $1,000 a month or a little less than. So yeah, I think that's not too bad. It's not asking
less than
too
my
much.
mortgage. I mean,
And that's in Drive. That's the whole thing we talked about. I thought it was just gonna be $20,000, but they keep saying, "Oh, more and more and more." And James Franco is just up front. He's like, "You just owe me $60,000. That's it." And so Jimmy immediately realizes that it's not for fucking around anymore. When during his soliloquy about payment and respect, Taylor pulls out a machine gun and loads it, and then begins referencing Jimmy's dad and his brother, and so he knows what he needs to know. I mean, he's obviously fairly decent at his job, and Jimmy obviously goes into a panic. He's like, "Well, what I meant to say is I have it, I just don't have it here."
very believable.
Yes, believable delivery.
Not to put too fine a point on it, and not to belabor the obvious, but this movie's about guns. And even before we get to the gun, yeah, you're right. Franco opens that package that he has there, that big case, and this is like 10 or so of those, at the time, very impressive machine guns or whatever it is that he's carrying there. Later in the movie, that will be dwarfed by a different, bigger gun. But I like that. I think that there's like the sci-fi stuff and the brotherly connection that runs through the movie, but there's also just this idea of just weapons, guns, and what they do, what happens, what kind of person you are when you're holding a gun, and what kind of person you are when the gun is pointed at you. And that is so American. Not just in the year 2022, I mean, also in 2018, and probably, as you go back through the decades. This is a country that loves its guns. And it's funny because this movie, when you think about it, you're going to think it's about the two brothers, or it's about the relationship with the father and all that stuff. You don't really think that it's not like it has much to say about guns, but really once it's all over, that is that thread that's like woven throughout the entire story. And it starts right here when Franco pulls out that, I mean, he could have just pulled out a revolver and it would have been as impressive, but the movie, the filmmakers, they had a point to make, and that's like, yeah, look, this thing is big.
And while we're on the subject of guns, yeah, kind of running parallel to this, Eli, in one of his places he goes to look for copper, he's a fucking 14-year-old boy, and he's earning a hard living. He's pulling copper out of walls and trading it in for cash. And one of the sites that he visits, he finds wreckage that we talked about. He finds a decapitated body from one of these extraterrestrial beings. And then here's like a beeping, like a homing device, and follows it down and finds this. It looks just like a big metal rectangle, but he picks it up, and after he runs his hand across it, it uncoils and turns into this big fucking insane futuristic style weapon, like the BFG from Doom or some shit. And it has like, laser sights and all these graphics that pop out of it and whatnot. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is like one of the most realistic parts of this movie, because if you're 14 and you find something like that, if you show your parents, are going to take it away from you. So of course he's just going to like hide it in his backpack and take it home.
Yep.
And then, play with it in the mirror and shit and try to look badass with it when no one else is around. So it's for a movie routed in science fiction, this part of the story I found very, very relatable.
That thing your brother has in there? You need to call someone about that.
Can't do that.
But it's so genius, because the science fiction part of it is what makes it not as disturbing. It's that way we can have fun with it, because you could tell a similar story if this was just a 14-year-old that found a gun. Like he's doing his scavenging and he finds a gun, like the guns that were like the ones that James Franco has. He would do the same things, but suddenly as a viewer, you're just kind of more disturbed because it hits a little too close home. But when you make it a futuristic gun that has the lights and the sounds and all stuff, suddenly there's enough of a disconnect that I can just sit back and just kind of like have fun and see where it goes. Which is good. It's like that's the type of movie they're trying to make, like something fun instead of just a very serious, very depressing view at guns that end up in the hands of minors. That's a Scorsese movie.
Jimmy comes back home and tells his dad what's going on. He's like, hey, I'm in with some bad people and I need money. I need $60,000, please. And he's like, I don't have that kind of money. He's like, well, there's the safe at your job site. And he's like, are you threatening me, asshole? And, literally grabs him by the back of the neck and throws him out. He's like, get the fuck out of here. And he's trying to tell him, he's like, this is going to cause problems for you. And that's so unfair that this dude just dragged his dad and Eli into it. Is this where he calls him the replacement kid?
Yeah. In his defense, he didn't know that Eli was listening. That was supposed to be an insult between him and his dad. It's weird because I'm kind of like I wouldn't say that I'm on Jimmy's side here, but I think that Quaid could have been a little more supportive. Instead of kicking out his son, who has real cause for concern. It's not that he's making this up. Franco said, I know where your dad lives. I know where your little brother lives. So it's a serious threat. I just wish that Quaid had been a little more, he hadn't gotten so hot so quickly and instead of being like, have you considered talking to the police? Mm-hmm. But instead he just kicks the guy out and then we're just on the path to tragedy.
During one of these scenes, I can't remember which one, there's a Detroit Red Wings pennant on the wall. It's like, oh, I forgot we were in Detroit for a second. Thanks for reminding me. One of my notes says, without $60,000, shit's going to go down. And then the next line, it says, shit went down. As Quaid's going to go to his work site. Why is he going in? Is he going to pick something up?
Yes, because, again, with the tough love, he finds out that Eli is selling the copper. And that Eli is stripping these abandoned warehouses and... Dennis Quaid is pretty old-fashioned when it comes to taking stuff that's not yours. So he grabs Eli by the ear and tells him, I have a book in my office that has the phone numbers of every developer in the area. So you're going to call every number until you find out who owns the place that you've been stripping. And you're going to apologize and you're going to return what you stole. Well, maybe he should have waited till the next morning.
Confirmed, because he comes in and shit's going down. Jimmy led them there, and James Franco and his boys are hollowing out the safe there for the money that they're owed. And Dennis Quaid stands his ground of like, hey, that money's not mine, and you can't take it, and it's not his either. This angers James Franco, and Jimmy's telling him, he's like, please just leave, or else this is going to go bad. But Dennis Quaid's like, God damn it, I'm not in the second or third act of this movie, so no thank you. He ends up getting shot, sadly.
Did you see it coming?
Not as bluntly as it happened. Like, I figured, like, oh, man, he's going to get shot or, like, messed up in this kerfuffle, but I figured he would at least be around a little bit longer. But James Franco just pulls a gun out and shoots him, and it turns into this shootout, and Jimmy's trying to wrestle the gun away, and in the fracas, James Franco inadvertently shoots his brother in the neck, Dutch, and he dies from this. Jimmy, like a real shitbag, just watches his dad die, grabs a sack of cash, and heads out.
I am loving how hard you are on the Jimmy character.
Oh, Jimmy's a loser, man. It's only going to get worse from here.
I know he is, but he's a lovable loser. Weren't you rooting for him to see the light, to do the right thing?
Well, this part here, you have to blame Eli. He's 14, so he's obviously still a child, but it's like, Jimmy's like out of breath and sweating and jumps in the car. He's like, oh yeah, Dad's gonna have to work, we gotta go. And it's like, all right, now we're gonna go on a road trip. He's like, okay.
But there is something, I mean, we all know it's all really dumb. Like I know he's like, the adrenaline is fucking with him and he's just trying to get out of there. And I think it's kind of commendable that he doesn't want to leave his little brother behind, because he could have, Because he gets out of that office with the money. He grabs the bag of like $60,000 that Franco was going to take. So he has the means. But I just found there was something just very dumb, but also very sweet in the fact that Jack Reynor thought that he could actually pretend that Dennis Quaid was alive in the long run. It's like he tells Eli, oh no, Dad's just going to be working late. And then the next day he's like, oh yeah, Dad said that we should go get out of town and he's just going to catch up with us later. It's like, at some point, Eli's got to realize that Dennis Quaid's not showing up and the truth is going to come out. But just the fact that that Jack Rayner is playing that type of character, the guy that actually thinks that this was a good idea, that this is going to end well somehow. I found it endearing, and I'm not saying that the character is not a loser. I'm just saying that it made me kind of root for him in a way. But that could be just residual from Sing Street.
Wouldn't it have been something if we got like a Weekend at Bernie's type thing with Dennis Quaid?
He goes back to the office just to grab the corpse.
But he loads up his brother and he takes the cash. Well, most importantly, one, he takes the cash, and two, the Dutch, James Franco's brother, ends up dying in this fray. So that's it. Blood will be spilled over this. And Jimmy takes Eli back home and says, all right, well, we're going to go on a road trip now. We're going to meet Dad in Lake Tahoe. And Eli's just like, what? And Jimmy kind of falses him or pulls the, I'm a man thing. He's like, well, if you just want to be a little kid, that type of thing. Or first he checks him if like there's any type of daycare he can go to. He's like, I'm 14. So he tells him, he's like, all right, well, let's go load up. And, he grabs a bag and he also grabs his gun that he found, this mysterious implement of could be destruction. And they pack up and they head on out. Meanwhile, he's continuously feeding him lies about how, Dad's still alive. I've, been talking to him and whatnot. And I don't know, man, this Jimmy character,
he's not very bright.
He's bad news. There's like more holes in his plan than Swiss cheese.
Maybe, once
more
he got to
holes
Lake
to
Tahoe,
fill than Lisa Ann. Yeah.
Maybe his plan was, because, he has a lot of money. So once he gets to Lake Tahoe, he's going to hire Randy Quaid to pretend to be Dennis Quaid. And that will buy him some time.
That was the sequel that would have been if this didn't bomb.
I don't even know why I listen to you.
You don't have a choice in that, kid. I'm your father.
No, you're not.
So they leave the house like 30 seconds before James Franco shows up with an army of people. Did you think that Franco had, like he was, because I thought he was kind of like a small-time criminal. I didn't realize that he had a legion of gangsters.
If you're a crime lord in Detroit, you're not to disparage the fine city of Detroit or its people, but you're a bad hombre, man, and you got connections if you're running the crime circuit in that city. And I really actually enjoyed that shot because they get in the truck and they pull out, and it's just kind of quiet, this static shot of the house, and then the Franco and his crew come pulling around. And so they take Dennis Quaid's phone. That's how they eventually find out where they're going, because Eli leaves a voicemail. But they're just driving now. Eli wakes up, and I think they're in Iowa is what he says. He's just fucking driving to drive and get away. My man Eli at the rest stop or the diner they go to is playing the T2 arcade game. Did you catch that?
Oh, yeah, I did. It's in all caps on my notes. Like, I'm pretty sure Alex is going to geek out over this.
Yes. I mean, that's one of the all-time great arcade cabinets, and fitting in this is like pretty much the closing sequence of this. There's like a literal, like the way the shot is framed and presented is a direct homage to the first Terminator. So I respect it. I respect what they're doing here. They're just on the run and staying at shitty, seedy motels, and quickly the bonding process is going to begin. Back in Detroit, though, before Taylor, James Franco, can get on the hunt, they give his brother a fucking Viking funeral. He's just like on a stack of pallets, and they are all saying their piece. It's like Sons of Anarchy type shit, You got the guy who looks like Opie, and all the really trashy blonde women who, kind of have the feathered hoods on their jackets and probably play Pour Some Sugar on Me on the jukebox at the bar while drinking Miller Lite with salt on the rim.
This is Franco's Oscar clip. His big goodbye speech.
That's fair. I was trying to think of what else it could have been. I mean, in the end, his like last stand is pretty good, but you're right. This is his recounting of how his brother, when he was a little boy, his brother killed someone for him, that type of thing.
It's the kind of thing that kids do in the world.
I think this smash cuts to Eli in the bathroom at the shitty motel they're staying at, just playing with that gun. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? but again, it's a 14-year-old.
Yeah, but also imagine if this was a real gun. The exact same scene, but with a real gun. That is different, right? Like with the sci-fi gun, it puts you on edge, but it also looks kind of cool. Substitute with a real gun, and then you're just too horrified to have fun.
Exactly. The alien gun with all the bells and whistles on it adds a bit of levity to it. Yeah, if he was just holding like a fucking A.K.A. or like a Magnum, it would be like, well, this is extremely uncomfortable. But this is where we find the clean. I guess they're called the Cleaners. The Cleaner, not Kenny Omega, but the Cleaners are these what appear to be another worldly life form, and they're back in Detroit, and they have like tracking on their weapons, and so they're trying to find one of their weapons that was left behind, and they want it, and so now they're on the fucking hunt for it. They apprehend these motorcycles, and it's this really, really cool idea of like outside intervention, and I mean outside in the sense of outside of Earth intervention to like this crime case that's happening here. And so, you know, unbeknownst to Jimmy and Taylor and even Eli at this point, there's forces they can't comprehend that are about to, you know, intervene in their situation.
To quote Sarah Connor at the end of Terminator, a storm was coming. They just didn't know it.
I have to be this guy. She does not say that. The Hispanic gentleman translates for the little boy. It says, he said a storm is coming. And she looks at the dark clouds and she says, I know.
That's right, because she doesn't ask, was that the boogeyman? She says that was the boogeyman.
She affirms it was the boogeyman. Well played, sir.
And then the gas station guy goes, as a matter of fact, see.
Eli calls his dad and says, you know, we'll see you in Lake Tahoe.
He checks in.
Yes, he does. And this message is intercepted by James Franco and his clan. There is like this awesome shot of like, he's just, you know, white trash 101. And when he gets the call, he's listening to it, and you can see that he's making this grilled cheese that he's just burnt to shit. You know, it's like borderline smoking in his kitchen. You know, no butter or oil on it or anything. It's just a really nice touch because I don't take him for someone who has the delicacy to make a good grilled cheese.
Well, also, Alex, he's in mourning. I think that he had other things on his mind. Maybe he's a better chef when his brother is not dead.
If he's in mourning, then that's a specific reason to make a good grilled cheese. There's nothing that like warms, unless you're lactose intolerant, of course, but there's nothing more warming than a well-made grilled cheese sandwich. The brothers are bonding, though, as Eli wakes up. Jimmy's like, hey, we got to get out of here. He tells him to pull the truck up. He's like, I don't know how to drive. And we see this sequence of like Jimmy teaching him how to do donuts and floor the accelerator in a car, and there's some slow-mo shots of them making eye contact, and we're learning that, you know, these brothers are becoming friends now, and they're getting the bonding time they never really had in their youth.
It's like they're kin.
Yeah, there you go. And of course, like men do, they're pissing off the side of the road, and I did laugh. He asked his brother, he's like, do you like performance art? And this transitions to them going into a strip club. This kid's 14, man. And he's not even old looking 14.
Yeah,
he just takes him into a strip club. And he's like, just play it cool, man.
So who's to blame here? Who are you judging here? Jack Rayner for maybe trying to speed up this kid's puberty along, or the owners of the strip club for letting the kid in to begin with?
Oh, them for sure, because that's how you lose your liquor license immediately, is if they find someone. They just kind of look at him and roll their eyes, but then they see the wad of cash they pull out, and they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Rayner, to his credit, one, he doesn't order alcohol for Eli, and two, he doesn't like buy him a lap dance or anything. He just tell him like, sit here and watch.
But he does well. He's drinking his Pepsi or whatever, and just kind of hangs out and gives off the vibe, puts out a little bit of charm.
He looks 16.
It bumps his rate up. But the star of the strip club here is Millie, played by Zoë Kravitz. What else, X-Men First Class, what else does she have on her acting credentials?
She's been on the Contrarians twice, Alex. Both times they were minor characters. She was Will Smith's daughter in After Earth, so she had a couple of voicemails in that movie.
Sorry to hear that.
And she was one of the brides in Fury Road.
Yes, she was in Fury Road. Good call.
This is the most screen time we've seen her have. I mean, as far as the Contrarians canon.
Oh, yeah, this is like the most fleshed out she's had of a character in anything I've seen her in.
I think it's not difficult to make the case that she is a better older sibling than Jack Rayner.
Extremely. But he's like smitten with her Raynor, that is Jimmy, and he gets drunk. He tries to get on stage with her, and it doesn't look like a particularly bumping night at the strip club. I imagine it's like a Tuesday or a Wednesday night because the girls have time to sit with Jimmy and Eli and joke around, and Millie tries to get to, or she doesn't try to. She gets to know Eli a little bit better, and his brother gave him a handful of cash. He's like, "Give this to the girls that you like," and he gave it all to her. It's a sweet moment, but when she gets on, she does.
Were you? I was pleasantly surprised that she took it because that follows kind of like a sweet scene where she's talking to him and telling him, "Coming to this place doesn't make you a man," and she gives him the talk that an adult should have given him, and then he hands her the money, and you would expect it in I guess in that traditional movie she would not take it. She would return it. And she's like, "That's sweet, but that's for you. Go buy yourself some gum."
You've been in America too long, man.
Well, I watched this movie.
He's my brother. Adopted, obviously.
And do you think it's a good idea that he's here?
Like, she's still, yeah, this kid's sweet and I care, but also I got to make a living.
Oh, she's a stripper. Yeah, this is exactly the point. That's what they do.
Especially when they are under the watchful eye of what's the name of this dude? I guess he's a pimp at this point.
Oh, the guy in Jimmy keeps calling him Lyle Lovett, which I thought was actually pretty funny.
Yes. I want to say I know that guy from somewhere, but I can't place him. But I was much like with Franco. Once that guy was introduced, my thought was, all right, it's only a matter of time before this guy gets vaporized by that big gun. Did you have the countdown in your head to when that gun was going to be shot and like kill one of the bad guys?
Yes, I was like, who's going to be the one that incurs the wrath of this fucking gun that we don't know its power quite yet? And fortunately, the strip club cowboy was not it. His car gets blown up, but not him. But as Jimmy tries to dance, it causes a scene with the bouncers and whatnot. They tell him the only reason we tolerated you and the underage kid is because, you've been paying money. He is just drunk and talking shit. They're, throwing a bunch of expletives at Zoë Kravitz's way when she's trying to quell the situation. So Eli pulls the gun out and he's like, no one move. And they're looking at him like they should have. Like, what is that? A toy? Like, are you holding an Xbox there? What are you doing? And he hears a pool cue falls. So he quickly, course corrects with the gun and shoots the pool table. It blows it up and blows out the side of the building. So everyone's obviously in a panic. Jimmy and Millie now take off with him. They're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So they pile in a car. One of the other strippers says to Millie, "I hope you know what you're doing." And she says, "Me too." And they take off. And when they get far enough away, they're in the country. They pull over and they try to shoot the gun off. But the only one it works for is Eli. And so he's just blowing up, hay bales and shit like that. It's at this point Jimmy realizes, oh God, I left my bag back at the club. It had 60 or 70 grand in it. Because, you just casually forget about that kind of stuff. One, you put something like that down, and two, you forget about it. This guy's a fucking idiot, man.
Well, he was drunk. And
Dennis
he was
Quaid's still dead, and Eli doesn't know yet.
He was trying to not prevent, but just stall as much as possible. He's like, once I tell this kid that his father is dead, his life changes forever. So might as well have a little party for a few days. So he always has the memories of before he knew. I understand. I mean, he's a loser, but he had good intentions. Even Zoe Kravitz.
My family can't live in good intentions, Marge. He's just being a dickhead here. He doesn't know what to do, what better to do. This somehow leads to them deciding they're going to rob people.
Well, no, they're going to get his money back.
But that entails them robbing people.
Is it really robbing if you're just taking back what was robbed from you?
If you have to hold someone at gunpoint, yes. My point is the situation.
But what if they're bad guys? Isn't it
well,
justice?
Who's the bad guy here? This is like the the former criminal having to they had to make me turn back into the old me, that type of thing. And Jimmy obviously knows what to do and how to score because Millie knows where they do this poker game and they know they're only going to really prevail if they have this big alien gun. So poor Eli, man, gets sucked into it. And they put, the ski mask on him and have him hold these guys hostage with the big gun. And they end up getting their money back. And I actually enjoy this because it's one of these things of like, this movie had a $30 million budget, which is, you know, we say all the time, I would like to have that much money. That's a pretty modest budget. So you got to do things to be creative. And I really enjoyed here how this poker game is at a cattle ranch. And so the escape scene when they go and successfully get the money back, but they got to run because they're outnumbered. They may have this big fucking gun, but they're outnumbered in mass. So the getaway is them like navigating their way through these like milking stations and herd of cattle, all like real cows and shit. And it adds a sense of tension to it and like a sense of realism to it as well. And, you know me, I was watching this like, hey, those are real cows. That's cool. Makes this more believable to me, even though they're carrying an alien weapon. So I really appreciate what they did here. And then when they do, like they're on their way out, Eli makes a point to turn around and shoot the gun off at the, you know, Lyle Lovett's truck. And it's clearly a fucking truck on wires that they flip upside down and crash. So this is all up my alley here, this particular sequence.
You forgave how shitty of a person Jack Rayner was for a few seconds while you enjoyed the practical effects surrounding him.
You know, part of me was hoping that Zoë Kravitz, as soon as they like got out of the car, just peeled out and stole the truck. It was like, idiots. Or no, she would say men.
Do you think there's an earlier version of the script where one or two cows got just blasted by the super gun? Because I thought that was a possibility once I saw how many cows there were.
That's been, I mean, everything's been done in movies, but was it The Watch where they did that? They used the gun they found on a cow and it blew up. I know there's specifically a scenario exactly like this in a comedy somewhere where they get a weapon that from like an alien, they don't know what it is, and they point at a cow and it like vaporizes this cow. My point to you, or my answer to you, I should say, is that I truly believe it was in the original script, but then some of the Michael B. Jordan, the executive producer, came through. He's like, "Man, ain't you fuckers ever seen the Watch?"
He didn't have the heart to tell him, "Have you ever seen Terminator?" So once they pull off this robbery and they're just like really happy and they're celebrating and they're on a hot streak, they go to a casino, all this stuff. Is this where they truly become kin? Is this when the title of the movie made sense to you?
Oh, hey, I got a pair of Chucks hiding in a trunk around here somewhere. If I find them, you can have them. Sound good?
I would guess so, because the height of emotion, of positive emotion, and, you know, family and feeling has to come right before everything just completely falls apart. Because they end up going to Nevada. He doesn't even say Vegas. He just is like, hey, we're close to Nevada. And then so it shows them pulling into a big building that says casino. And so he's, you know, gung-ho to go gamble away and spend away. The culmination of this sequence at the casino, though, is there Millie and Eli are in the lobby and, you know, at the buffet or some shit. And Eli sees on TV the news report about Dennis Quaid being killed and how it's now suspected that it was his brother and him that did it. And this is sadly how he learns that his father has passed. And, you know, he goes into the casino floor and rightly, as would happen, the security guards are immediately like, we have a minor on the floor. There's a situation here.
Unlike the people at the strip club, they actually did their job.
But he goes and finds his brother and he's like, you lied to me. You lied to me. And, you know, it's a whole thing.
Okay, to Jack Rayner's credit, he almost told him when they were alone in the room. But then Zoë Kravitz had to walk in and ruin the moment.
What a man, dude. What a male you are for blaming the woman.
She apologizes even. She knew it was her fault.
But this obviously just goes poorly because people around them recognize them on the news, and then the security's called the situation to begin with. Jack Rayner tries to fight his way out, I guess if you want to say that to his credit, but they're apprehended and taken in. It would appear it is all over at this point, Julio.
But is it, Alex? Because there's still a big alien gun floating out there.
Amazingly, the cops don't do anything with that. They just book it as normal evidence. They probably tried to hook it up to a TV and play Madden on it.
they're very responsible about how they handle this whole case. Because they treat Eli pretty well. Even all things considered, they treat Jack Rayner pretty well. They allow visitation. They let them communicate.
So they're booked, and yeah, Eli is not really in custody. He's not like in a holding cell or anything like that, but Jimmy is. This is where we get kind of interspersed shots of Taylor, James Franco continuing to be on the hunt. So they allow Eli the opportunity to speak to his brother, and obviously he's not really wanting to hear anything that he's saying. And at this point, it pretty much becomes I don't want to say remake because it puts its own spin on it, but Julio, this is the police station scene from Terminator.
So Eli is Sarah, and Jack Rayner is Kyle.
Yes.
And Franco is Arnold.
Shockingly, yes.
I mean, that's about as far as you can take the analogy, I think, because I don't know that there's an equivalent to...
who's Bishop and who's Paul Winfield? Like, who assumes the roles of them? Just the cops?
Right, but there is... Okay, so I think those three, right, Sarah, Kyle, and Arnold are pretty easy to identify. And then you have, Paul Winfield and Lance Henriksen. There is one cop that turns out to be kind of fundamental in the way things play out. So that
that gives the keys to Eli?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, you can have the evidence.
Because Eli tells me, like, you saw my bag. You know what I have, man. I need it.
It's like, do I know what you have? But that cop gets killed. So I guess that's Paul Winfield. Because we never see Lance Henriksen die on camera. So Henriksen is whatever cop gets away. But anyway, your point is well taken, Alex. This is, and it's not a bad thing. I think that it was so long ago, Terminator, that it's okay to kind of heavily draw on that sequence for inspiration here, especially because, as you said, it puts its own spin on it. But seeing James Franco kind of...
Well, shit, if you're going to, put your own spin on something, nothing better than Terminator. So I respect it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the special effects have improved since then, and just the way that we write dialogue and the way that we act, the way that they act. So yeah, I was happy to see it with a new sheen, and seeing James Franco as this unstoppable force that's just making his way through a police station. I mean, that's just badass. Again, because I knew that at some point this movie couldn't end without Franco meeting his demise in a pretty horrifying way. So I was looking forward to that.
All right, so what happens here now, it's just like pandemonium. The police station's been hollowed out. Franco's people are out front with machine guns fighting off anyone that tries to come in. The FBI is called in. And Julio, I wasn't familiar with, but you seem to be familiar with the FBI agent, Morgan Hunter, played by Carrie Coon.
Dude, that is, you like to talk about big dick energy. I would like to just give props to Carrie Coon's agent, who got her third billing in the opening credits. And she shows up with 20 minutes to go in the movie, and she has maybe 3 lines in the entire movie. What's going on? How do you make that kind of deal? She's great. Those of you playing the Contrarians drinking game, get your shot ready because I'm about to praise The Leftovers. But she is my favorite character in The Leftovers. She's great. She's in all 3 seasons. I'm a big fan of hers. She's also in the 3rd season of Fargo. She's the main character in the 3rd season of Fargo, the TV show. She's Ben Affleck's sister in Gone Girl.
That movie's fucking great.
Okay, did you recognize her?
I did not. But now that you say that, I do, and she's excellent in that movie.
Yeah. She's one of the main characters. She's one of the reporters in The Post, that Steven Spielberg movie from a few years ago. So she's a name. She was already a name in 2018. I think that she already done The Leftovers and Fargo. So I don't know. I mean, this is just like, fuck. I almost spoiled a Glass Onion cameo for you, so I'm not going to. But it's just one of those puzzling things because, again, she gets 3rd billing unless there is a director's cut where you follow her character from the beginning of the movie, and then they just decide to cut all that out. It's crazy, and I'll give the movie a lot of props for this. I saw her name in the opening credits, and I got really excited. And then the movie was so engaging that I completely forgot about it until she showed up in this final sequence of the movie. So the movie was good enough to make me forget about one of my favorite actresses. That shows quality.
It's a hallmark of an engaging script right there, I tell you what.
Yeah. You forget about the things that you were anticipating because you're just so excited about the things that are actually happening. But yeah, she shows up not even to save the day. she shows up just to say, hi, I'm Carrie Coon.
Because she is like, gun, get down. And then, has a conversation with Eli at the end. But before we can get to that, Franco's crew gets eradicated by the alien weapon, or what we believe is the alien weapon. Pretty awesome. Just like it has different settings. It'll vaporize. It'll blow people away. It'll blow people up, that type of thing.
How crazy is it, Alex, that we've reached a point where Eli is actively killing people and...
and not really batting an eye at it either.
Right. I mean, it was, because the movie was being very careful about not having him kill people, right? He shoots at things. He blows up that car. He blows up a wall, the pool table. And so, that was a very conscious choice. Of course, it's a kid. You're not going to have a kid killing people. But then we've reached a point in the story where he has to do it. And it's not even like the movie, the characters, the story. There's no time for anybody to take a moment and assimilate it. It's just like, it's up to the audience to deal with this. we got to move to the ending.
Because they keep it at a respectable runtime. It's an hour and 45 minutes.
That is true.
It's the whole point. You don't have to fucking spoon feed your audience everything.
Dude, he's reloading! Shoot him now! Go!
Franco's the last man standing, as it appears as though Jimmy and Eli are going to have to give themselves up to the cops. James Franco comes out. He's got the gun pointed at Jimmy. And then, in case you forgot about him, are masked assailants or, otherworldly forces. We don't really know yet. They reappear on these bikes and they just tear through the crime scene there and end up on scene. And they're being shot at, and these bullets are just completely, bouncing off them. They're impervious to any of the damage that these things can do. They throw what appears to be a flash grenade into the police station, and when it goes off, it's like Quicksilver shit. It just freezes what's happening right now. So a bullet is literally in flight to Jimmy's head from Taylor's gun, but these two who we believe are aliens come in and they press the little gimmick on their helmets and they reveal their faces, and one of them is Michael B. Jordan, and the other one
not on the credits.
No, well, he's in the post credits as the executive producer on it, but I don't think he was in the opening credits. But whatever the case, I didn't recognize the other one. Are you familiar with Lily Gao? Are you familiar with the female cleaner?
Mm-mm. But even if I had, I think I would have been just too starstruck by the fact that Michael B. Jordan was under that helmet. So I didn't see it coming.
Imagine going to this with no context and be like, "Holy shit, it's Apollo Creed's kid."
Was this like when you saw Tupac in Nothing But Trouble?
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. It wasn't quite that shocking, but it was definitely like, "Oh shit, it's Michael B. Jordan."
I had to do a double take. I was like, "Is that Michael B. Jordan?" With 5 minutes left in the movie, he shows up to provide some necessary exposition.
And Julio, I need you to recount this exposition to us. I'm going to task you with that.
You're tapping out.
Yes.
You're going to let me do the pin or whatever you call it.
Take the cover.
Take the cover. All right. So they never explain who these people are as far as if they're from another planet, another dimension, another timeline. What Michael B. Jordan says is that Eli is one of them. That's why earlier he had shown Zoë Kravitz. Eli has shown Zoë Kravitz this marking that he had on his hand, and he thought that it was a scar from his abusive parents, his biological parents.
That's right.
But it turns out that no, that little thing that he has is just like a mark that shows that under his skin there is a device. There's something that is what allows him to use the gun. That's why he's the only person that can use the gun, because I guess he's not human, or he's not from this time or from this dimension. He's from Michael B. Jordan's dimension. And there's a war going on in that dimension, planet, whatever. And Eli is very important, so they hid him in our planet, dimension, timeline, whatever. But they've been keeping an eye on him, and he wasn't supposed to get this gun. they're here to take the gun back. Don't worry, Eli, we'll come back for you at some point because you're very important to us. And then Michael B. Jordan closes by, I guess, revealing that he is his actual brother. So this was the real kin. Michael B. Jordan and Eli are actual brothers. And then they do their little handshake and their hands glow. And then they go away back to wherever they came from. They take the gun with them. And they save Jack Rayner's life because they change the trajectory of the bullet.
Yeah, they do like was a game called Portal? That might have just been called Portal, where you find like an opportunity and open it up. Was that maybe it was Half-Life where you had like that portal gun? Anyway, they find their way back to wherever they come from, and then they turn the bullet around. Lily Gao does, and so when time comes back into the fold, right through James Franco's head it goes, and so that's how we get rid of Taylor. And then Jimmy basically takes the blame for every single thing that's happened, so that Eli's future's not compromised or ruined at all. But your girl here, Carrie Coon, goes and has a conversation with Eli that pretty much takes us out on the movie.
She tells him, "I'll be back." She asks a couple questions. Eli follows, his brother's advice. I guess he clams up. He doesn't say anything, and then she's like, "All right, but this isn't over."
She's John Hamm at the end of the A-Team.
Yes. What was her name? You got her name from the credits, I guess, because they never call her anything on this movie. Not even like Agent whatever.
FBI Agent Morgan Hunter. She has a first and a last name, man.
Is she? Where did this movie come from? Is it like a comic book? And she's a character there. I know. I read that on the opening credits. They say that it's based on a short made by the same guy. So I wonder if she was a bigger character on the short.
Bagman is what it's based on here, and Bagman was written and directed by the Baker brothers, Jonathan and Josh. Bagman is the understated story of a 12-year-old boy who takes us on an introspective journey out of the city and into a remote countryside of upstate New York with a mysterious duffel bag in hand. Its contents unknown to us. We journey from the urban hustle of Harlem into the winter-ravaged woodlands of a world away. On the road, we slowly discover his real intentions and the significance of what is hidden inside a young man's bag. All right.
Is it Carrie Coon's head?
No, it's FBI Agent Morgan Hunter's head.
Okay.
But anyway, that was Kin.
That was Kin. The real Kin was in another dimension.
The friends we made along the way.
Yes. The real Kin was the guns we found along the way.
I have many thoughts on this. No, that's not fair. I have thoughts on this movie. I have thoughts on the premise of this movie and the execution of it, in that one is good and one is bad. So I'll be curious to see which side of the fence you reside on, Julio.
I will say this as we close Contrarians Corner. This movie was directed by brothers, features two characters that are not blood brothers, but they are, adoptive brothers. The antagonist loses his brother in a gunfight, and that's why he's chasing them. And then at the end of the movie, our protagonist finds his real brother, who's from another dimension, planet, whatever. So,
they're just pissed that 7 years before this, there was a movie called Brothers.
Yes. That was like, damn it, what do we call it now?
My timing was off. That was, it would have been 9 years before this, because it was 2009 when that came out. A Jim Sheridan joint, that's right. Mm-hmm. So, all right, Julio. Well, I think we've done what we can with this for Contrarians Corner, so I think it's time we go ahead and move this into real talk.
All right, let's load our guns and head into the... Yes. That's right.
You just looked out for your brother. Now I'm doing the same thing for mine. We'll be seeing you again. We're all counting on it.